Hello everybody, Shrouded Hand here. Quite often I'll either find or I'll be sent some crazy story that I want to cover, but it doesn't quite fit in with any of the videos I'm making. So today's video doesn't have a specific theme, it's just a bunch of disturbing true stories that wouldn't fit anywhere else. This one was shared on the Discord server by Goose, so thanks Goose. Woman zips her boyfriend into suitcase and leaves him to die. This happened this year on the 24th of February. The woman's name was Sarah Boone. According to her, she and her boyfriend George Torres Jr. had been drinking all night when they decided it would be fun to play hide and seek. During the game, Sarah suggested that it would be funny if George hid inside a suitcase and she would zip it up. She told police that she then passed out drunk and awoke to find George still inside the suitcase, completely unconscious. She called an ambulance to the house, but by that point he was already dead. So at first it seemed like, although their actions were completely stupid, the death was an accident. That is until police checked her phone. On it they found two recordings in which Sarah Boone can be heard laughing whilst her boyfriend screams for help from within the suitcase. He can be heard on multiple occasions saying that he can't breathe and begging to be let out. Sarah can be heard to say, "That's what you get when you cheat on me." Without these recordings, she might be facing a manslaughter charge, but she's now been charged with second-degree murder. Okay, this is just a little addendum to this last story, because I found something else out while I was putting the video together. Apparently 4 years before this woman murdered her boyfriend, she was investigated by the police for posting a picture on Facebook of a child being zipped into a suitcase. Orange County deputies said 4 years ago they investigated the photo of the child in the suitcase that Sarah Boone posted on Facebook and found that no harm was done. So yeah, I just thought I'd add that on there because it's a weird, interesting detail, and yeah, very strange. I guess this is probably where she got the idea from, but yeah, weird. This next one was sent to me ages ago by my cousin Jake, and I'm only just getting round to covering it. When I first read it, I honestly had to check that it wasn't a spoof article because the details are so insane, but apparently this really did happen. In 2014, the FBI raided the Biological Resource Center in Arizona. This was a place where people could donate the bodies of deceased family members in the belief that they would be used by charities and medical professionals to find cures to diseases. In actual fact, the Biological Resource Center was running a black market in body parts. For $3,000 you could buy a whole body minus the head. A torso with a head attached would set you back $2,500. If you just wanted a foot, it will cost you $450. The scene that greeted the FBI agents when they entered the property was worse than they could have imagined. Dismembered bodies were stacked up on top of each other with no way of identifying who the body had belonged to or what they had died of. Corpses were contaminated with various diseases and infections, and there were no checks to make sure contaminated tissue wasn't being sold to clients. There were buckets full of limbs, another one full of heads. They even found a cooler filled with male genitalia. Most bizarrely of all, they found a male body with the head removed and a female head sewn onto the neck in its place. This corpse was hung up on the wall like some kind of freakish artwork. The owner of this business, believe it or not, was called Stephen Gore. He pleaded guilty to the mishandling of human remains, but only received a suspended jail sentence of 1 year. Eventually, family members who had donated bodies of their loved ones managed to sue the Biological Resource Center for a collective sum of $58 million. They had been misled to believe that the bodies would be used for medical research, when in actual fact they had been used for all sorts of things that the families hadn't approved. In one case, a man discovered that his mother's corpse had been blown up by the army to test what happens to the human body if they're in a car when it's hit by an IED. The next story also involves body parts and shows the awful chaos that can happen in the aftermath of an explosion. I'm sure a lot of people already know about the Oklahoma City bombing of 1995. On the 19th of April, Timothy McVeigh detonated a fertilizer bomb outside the Murrah Federal Building, killing at least 168 people. The exact number of dead is not known because of the state of the bodies. The explosion was so powerful that people were literally torn limb from limb. In clearing the wreckage, rescuers had to piece together the bodies so that they could get a proper burial. Blasted off arms and legs were pieced together with the relevant torsos like some kind of grim jigsaw puzzle before they were sent off to the morgue. Strangely enough, after all the bodies had been removed, they found an extra leg. At first it was thought that someone else had been caught in the blast and the rest of their body had been obliterated, but DNA testing proved it to be the leg of Lakeisha Levi, whose body had been removed from the wreckage weeks before. The problem is, Lakeisha had been buried with 2 legs. Somehow in the confusion of the wreckage, the wrong body part had been attributed to her corpse, and she had been buried with someone else's limb. Her body was exhumed and the offending leg replaced, but this raised an interesting question. Who did this extra leg belong to? Lakeisha's body and the misplaced limb had both been embalmed before burial, so extracting DNA from the mystery leg was impossible. It's been speculated that it could have belonged to an unidentified accomplice, somebody who helped McVeigh and had detonated the bomb at the source. It's possible that Lakeisha Levi was buried with the leg of the person who killed her. More likely it just belonged to another victim. A few people were buried without intact bodies, but it's eerie to think how many more of them could be buried with the wrong body parts. Matthew Gonzalez, Kevin Jones, and another boy who hasn't been named were taken into custody in 2008 in Kingswood, Texas. They were suspected of being involved in a vehicle robbery, but during questioning, another, more sinister crime came to light. The details were so bizarre that police assumed the boys were making it up to distract from the robbery, but when one of the boys vomited whilst relating details of the crime, police decided to take it seriously. The boys told them that they dug up the grave of a young boy, removed the skull, turned it into a bong, and smoked pot out of it. It had happened at Pipe Yard Cemetery, an overgrown and disused plot of land with an interesting history. In 1933, the town of Humble decided to racially segregate the population. The black townsfolk had to relocate, which included relocating the graves of their families. A lot of these bodies got reburied on this patch of land. The body they dug up was that of Willie Sims, a boy who had died in 1921 at the age of 11. Ironically, his headstone simply says, "At rest." But sure enough, police visited the graveyard and found Willie Sims's grave had been dug up and the head was missing. But after searching their boys' homes, they were unable to locate the missing skull, and it still hasn't been found to this day. In the absence of any skull bung as proof, many still believe that this element of the story was a fabrication, but the 3 teenagers all signed sworn statements that this had actually happened. All 3 were charged with abuse of a corpse, a Class A misdemeanor. I can't find what happened to 2 of them, but I know that Kevin Wade got 240 days in jail, so I assume the others got a similar sentence. Apparently they were all involved in other crimes as well, so it probably varies on what the actual sentences they got in the end. But it does make me wonder, what happened to the bong? Did it ever really exist? Maybe Willie Sims's head is still out there somewhere being smoked out of. Who knows? This last story I picked just so I could read out this headline. Disabled man wakes to find his pet dog had eaten his toes. A Swedish man named Mickey Thomasson had been paralysed in a car accident 25 years before, but in the intervening years, one of his feet had developed huge infected ulcers. Doctors told him that he would have to get his leg amputated, but he didn't feel right about having the body part removed, so instead he simply stayed at home and dosed himself up on morphine to control the pain. The infection continued to get worse until the flesh on his feet began to fester and rot. That night he had taken so much morphine that he knocked himself out so completely that he didn't even feel his dog chewing his feet. His friend came into his room the next morning with a cup of tea and shouted, "Wake up, the dog has eaten your toes." Thomason says the dog had obviously been working hard through the night and looked visibly exhausted. He says the incident made him realise that he needed to get his leg amputated, and so he's happy that the dog chewed his toes off. It gave him a new lease of life. And this isn't the only time something like this has happened. In 2008, a Lexington man named Terry Smith had 4 of his toes chewed off by his puppy while he slept. Smith, who is paralysed from the waist down, felt nothing and was only alerted when his roommate noticed a pool of blood coming from his feet. Another case happened in Michigan in 2010. A man named Jerry Duthette passed out in a drunken stupor and awoke to find his dog looking up at him with blood around its muzzle. It had chewed off one of his big toes. He was rushed to hospital where it was discovered that he had type 2 diabetes. The chewed off toe had become gangrenous and the dog had only eaten the infected part. If the dog hadn't done this, Jerry probably would never have gotten his diabetes diagnosis and he would have died. And again, a similar case happened in 2011. A diabetic man from Oregon fell asleep on his couch and awoke to find his pet dog had eaten part of his foot, including 3 of his toes. The foot had become infected and started to decay. It's believed that the dog was acting instinctively and was trying to help by removing the rotting tissue. This was only meant to be 5 disturbing true stories, but found so many about toes being eaten that I had to include the other ones as well. It's actually a shame the Biological Resource Centre got shut down because it seems like it probably would be a good place to get some dog treats. I've got some more fan art to show off. I've had quite a few this week actually, and also I've had so many messages and things that I've had trouble keeping up with them all, so I feel like I might have missed some people out here. So if you sent me any artwork and I don't include it here, send me a DM on Instagram or drop me an email and I'll try and remember next time. It's nothing personal, it's just because I'm very disorganised and forgetful, so yeah, just send me it again. This one from Adder's Fiend is cool. It also reminds me that I've had the Devil's Toy Box sat in my attic for 3 years. Maybe it's time to climb up in the attic and get the box down and do some experiments. I love the stylings of this one from Mice with Halos. They said it was inspired by my video about Ryan Reynolds and his talking budgies. I'm not sure how you make a budgie look creepy, but they've somehow managed it. These 2 are from Sewer Art. I've noticed actually that the more cute someone draws that logo, the more it looks kind of like a jellyfish or an octopus. That's another one that would look good as a stuffed toy. This one from Felix Ferris Argyle is really good as well. Actually looking at it again, I've realised that the eyes look like they've been pulled out and then put back in the wrong way. What a delightfully hideous idea. So thanks to those artists. As usual, I'll put a link to their Instagrams in the description, so go check out their pages and give them a follow. Also, huge thanks to this month's patrons and everyone who's donated on PayPal. It's highly appreciated, especially in these uncertain times. I know that money's tight for a lot of people and jobs are at risk, so I thank everyone who's still able to donate. If you'd also like to help out the channel, then check out the link on screen now. I hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, goodbye.